The early sun gleamed across the skyscrapers of downtown Chicago, casting long shadows on the bustling sidewalk. Logan Caldwell, 45 years old, stepped out of his sleek black sedan onto Wabash Avenue, tall, with neatly trimmed dark hair and a lean, athletic build. He cut an imposing figure in his tailored navy blue suit. People passed by with takeout coffees, quick hellos, and the urgency of another workday. Logan felt the same intensity. He was due for a high-stakes meeting in less than 15 minutes, and the prospect of finalizing a multi-million-dollar contract simmered in his mind. Walter, his longtime driver, a stocky man of 50 with salt and pepper hair, shut the car door carefully behind him. "Mr. Caldwell," Walter said, tipping his cap, "I'll be right here once your meeting's over." Normally, Logan would just offer a curt nod and stride away. But today, something in the air weighed on him. He hesitated, scanning the crowd as if searching for a detail out of place. Directly ahead, near the entrance of a small cafe, a woman sat curled against the brick wall. The city's noise swirled around her, yet she seemed frozen in her own private space. Her hair, once maybe a rich brown, was tangled and dusty, and her coat was several sizes too large, tattered at the edges. She clutched an old teddy bear so tightly that her knuckles turned white. The battered toy looked out of place in the flurry of polished shoes and expensive handbags passing by. Logan's heart thumped, though he couldn't explain why. He had grown used to stepping around people in unfortunate circumstances. Chicago's downtown had its share of homeless individuals. Normally, he would have offered a quick donation or simply hurried along. Today, his chest tightened with a faint recollection he couldn't quite grasp. He moved closer, feeling a rush of adrenaline that rivaled any business deal. The woman lifted her gaze, revealing eyes of a hazel shade that glimmered with fear and exhaustion. Her cheekbones were pronounced from apparent malnourishment, and faint lines etched her face, a face that, for reasons Logan did not fully understand, made his breath catch. He stopped about 2 steps away. The hustle of the street seemed to fade. Somewhere to his left, a group of tourists chattered excitedly, and horns blared as cabs jostled for position. Yet all Logan could sense was the chill in the air, and those haunted hazel eyes locked on his. Walter, standing a few feet behind, looked puzzled. "Sir, you'll be late," he reminded softly. Logan nodded absently, but he couldn't pull his attention away from the woman. The teddy bear's fur was grimy and missing patches, as if it had survived countless hardships. Something about that toy triggered an ache deep within him. Vague memories of a laughing girl, an old stuffed animal, and a sunny backyard somewhere far away floated through his mind. She lowered her head, hugging the teddy bear closer. Logan noticed a subtle tremor run through her hands. Without thinking, he inched forward. "Ma'am, are you all right?" His voice emerged gentle, far from the commanding tone he usually employed at the boardroom table. She didn't answer, only cast an uncertain glance at him. Logan tried again, quietly this time. "Do you need help?" A flutter of doubt churned in his stomach. He had no idea what sort of help he could offer. Yet the compulsion to do something tugged at him stronger than any business deadline. For a moment, their eyes met again, and in that instant, time seemed to slow. In those weary features, he glimpsed a distant reflection of a childhood friend. The image was faint, but the familiarity was enough to send his pulse racing. He opened his mouth to speak a name that hovered on the tip of his tongue. Lucy, was it? That couldn't be possible. Lucy Sanders had disappeared from his life decades ago. A swirl of city noise resumed as he stepped back, uncertain. His phone buzzed with a reminder of his important meeting. In another life, Logan would have hurried off, ignoring the silent plea emanating from this woman. But today, he simply couldn't. Something about the teddy bear, and the flicker in her eyes held him captive. The world around them seemed to halt, as if the shabby toy were the center of the universe. Logan exhaled slowly. "Walter," he said, glancing over his shoulder, "I'm going to stay here a minute." He looked again at the woman, heart pounding. He had no idea who she truly was, but a gnawing sense of recognition set his entire body on edge. Whatever his next step would be, it was clear he wouldn't be making that meeting on time. Logan's chest constricted with unexplainable urgency. He crouched down on the sidewalk, well aware of the curious stares from people passing by. The woman pulled the threadbare teddy bear closer to her chest, as if it were a protective shield. Her eyes darted from Logan's face to the swirl of activity behind him. Softening his voice, he attempted a gentle approach. I think I know you," he said. The moment the words left his lips, he realized how vague they sounded. In his mind, though, the notion felt strong. He was certain they had crossed paths before, if only he could pinpoint when. She flinched at his tone, eyes narrowing. "I don't want trouble," she murmured. Her voice was husky and strained, as though she hadn't spoken at length in months. An edge of wariness tightened around every syllable. Logan shook his head. "No trouble, I promise. Are you Lucy?" Speaking the name sent a shiver through him. He hadn't said that name in years. Memories teased the edge of his consciousness, running barefoot on a summer lawn, the sound of laughter echoing off sunlit fences. But Lucy Sanders from his childhood was bright-eyed, full of mischief. The woman before him was a fragile shell, burdened by time and suffering. She squinted at him, unconvinced. "Who wants to know?" He swallowed hard. "My name's Logan Caldwell. From—" Before he could finish, she clutched the teddy bear tighter and shook her head vehemently. "Doesn't matter," she whispered. Her eyes flickered, a mix of recognition and panic flickering in them. Walter hovered a few steps away, wanting to help yet hesitant to interfere. The midday sun was climbing, bathing the sidewalk in a stark light that caught every detail of Lucy's exhausted features. Logan tried to steady his breath. Part of him was still grappling with the reality that this woman could be the same Lucy who once played tag with him behind his grandparents' place in Texas. Feeling awkward and unsure, he pulled out his wallet and took out a couple of bills. "Look, maybe you could use—" Her expression flashed from apprehension to indignation. "No!" Her voice was firm, though shaky. "I'm not asking you for money." Logan opened his mouth, then closed it. He realized that offering money felt like a clumsy, almost impersonal gesture. She was still Lucy, if that was indeed who she was, and Lucy never responded well to pity. With a small nod, he tucked the bills away. "I'm sorry," he offered quietly. In the distance, horns honked and a bus rattled by, releasing passengers in a rush of footsteps. The world felt strangely divided. Everyone else hurried on with their lives, while Logan stood here, suspended in a strange bubble of memory and confusion. Walter cleared his throat. "Sir, you have that meeting. Perhaps—" Logan glanced at his watch, noticing the time he should have arrived at the office. Anxiety twinged in his gut at the thought of missing the contract negotiation, yet he couldn't walk away from this moment. He looked back at Lucy, the name resonating louder in his mind. Every second that passed, he grew more convinced it was indeed her. "Would you let me buy you a coffee?" he asked, voice trembling slightly. "Or some food, maybe?" She didn't answer, just lowered her gaze. The tension around her eyes hinted at internal conflict, as if she was weighing whether to accept or bolt. Finally, she mumbled a nearly inaudible, "I'm fine." A few seconds later, she got up, the teddy bear still pressed against her chest. Logan remained on one knee. He sensed her fear, her need to escape. "I won't bother you," he said gently, standing slowly to avoid startling her. "But I'd like to talk if—" She took a shaky step back, scanning the passers-by, eyes brimming with a haunted suspicion. Then, in a swift motion, she turned and hurried away. Logan's heart pounded. Part of him wanted to chase after her, but he knew that might only alarm her further. He stared at the place where she had stood, wrestling with the sudden emptiness that replaced her presence. His phone buzzed again. Another reminder. Meeting, contract. The biggest deal of his quarter. Yet, as he gazed down the street where Lucy vanished, he realized he couldn't let this mystery slip away. There was no chance he would forget that face, that worn teddy bear, or the stirring in his heart that told him to search for answers. This time, business would have to wait. Logan paced the polished floors of his office's conference room, trying to refocus on the conversation about quarterly numbers. Leather chairs encircled a gleaming mahogany table, and the windows offered a panoramic view of Chicago's skyline. Yet all Logan could see in his mind was the flicker of recognition, Lucy's eyes meeting his. He rubbed his temple, struggling to tune back into the discussion about profit margins. Across the table, several colleagues flipped through charts and projection slides. They exchanged awkward glances at Logan's obvious distraction. Ken, a young analyst in a crisp gray suit, wrapped up a point about new client acquisitions. When he realized Logan wasn't listening, Ken cleared his throat pointedly. "Mr. Caldwell, we need your final approval on the next phase budget," he repeated. Snapping from his reverie, Logan forced a smile. "Yes, sure. Let's finalize it." His voice lacked conviction, and he knew his team could sense it. While they murmured among themselves, Logan took a deep breath, recalling Lucy's guarded expression. She had run from him. But why? What had happened to bring her so low? Moments later, the meeting adjourned. Logan quietly stepped out, ignoring the concerned looks from his colleagues. Outside the conference room, Walter was waiting, hands folded. "Everything all right, sir?" he asked, tone cautious. It wasn't typical for Logan to lose composure, especially at such a critical juncture with the company. But as far as Walter could tell, something fundamental had shifted in his boss's demeanor since the morning. Logan loosened his tie. "Walter, I think I found someone I used to know, someone from a long time ago." He paused. "But she's in a desperate situation." The memory of Lucy huddled on the sidewalk made him ache with regret that he'd never tried to find her before. Walter nodded slowly, recalling that Logan had once mentioned a childhood friend named Lucy. He'd only mentioned her in passing, stories of innocent summer days, nothing more. "Is there something I can do to help?" Walter asked. "I'm not sure," Logan admitted, sliding his hand into his pocket. "She disappeared before I could say much." Frowning, he recalled the intangible wave of emptiness he felt the moment she walked away. He retreated to his personal office, a sleek space dominated by glass walls and minimalist decor. Photographs of past achievements lined a shelf, images of Logan shaking hands with famous entrepreneurs, receiving awards for corporate philanthropy. Yet none of those accolades held any meaning to him now. The only photograph that drew his eye was an old snapshot, tucked behind the others, of him as a boy, playing in a dusty backyard with a friend. She was grinning, her hair tied in pigtails, clutching a teddy bear. Lucy. He lifted the photo, a rush of nostalgia tightening his throat. How could the carefree girl in that picture be the same woman cowering on a cold sidewalk? The phone on his desk buzzed, jarring him from his thoughts. It was Henry Williamson, his CFO, likely calling to check on the status of a new client pitch. Logan sent it straight to voicemail. His conscience wrestled with him. He knew if he lost focus, the company could suffer. Deals might crumble. Investors would question his leadership, yet he couldn't let go of the image of Lucy's hollowed cheeks and frightened eyes. Was it worth ignoring her plight just to maintain perfect order in his business life? Logan closed his eyes, searching for clarity. A memory surfaced, Lucy and he, around 10 years old, chasing each other near an old barn during a family gathering in Texas. She laughed so freely back then, a sound so sweet it made everything seem possible. That memory collided with the harsh reality of Lucy's trembling voice earlier that morning. A gentle knock sounded on his office door. Walter stepped inside. "Mr. Caldwell, is there anything specific you'd like me to do? Perhaps drive around the area and see if she's still there." Logan inhaled deeply. He didn't know if Lucy would even talk to him again after he tried offering money. Yet the thought of giving up on her, especially when she seemed so lost, gnawed at him. "Yes," he finally said, meeting Walter's gaze. "Let's try. I don't know how, but we have to find her again." Walter nodded, understanding the weight behind Logan's words. Outside, the afternoon sun was already waning, as if reflecting the urgency Logan felt. Part of him wondered if Lucy would allow herself to be found, or if she had vanished as abruptly as she'd appeared. One thing was certain: he couldn't ignore this call of conscience, not this time. By late afternoon, Logan was sifting through old boxes in a storage closet adjacent to his office. Dust motes floated in the fluorescent light as he rummaged among faded documents, old binders, and personal knickknacks he'd collected over the years. He found what he was looking for, a small stack of letters dating back to his high school days. Many were from casual friends, but near the bottom of the pile, he spotted the cramped handwriting that belonged to Lucy Sanders. Carefully lifting the top envelope, he slipped the letter out and scanned the lines. It was filled with typical teenage musings, talk of weekend plans and favorite songs. But reading Lucy's words brought her voice back to life in his mind. He could almost hear her youthful laughter. How had their lives diverged so drastically? Where had she gone? And why did she never reach out? He tucked the letters under his arm and straightened up as the door opened. Henry Williamson, Logan's CFO in his early 60s, stepped in, his suit impeccable, his expression tense. "Logan," he said, voice clipped, "we need to talk. Investors are getting restless. They want to see you fully engaged again." Logan braced himself. "I know, Henry, and I will be, but something personal has come up." Henry eyed the dusty letters in Logan's hand skeptically. "Personal shouldn't interfere with business to this extent," he said, tone firm. "You've always been our rock. We can't afford a slip." Logan closed his eyes, a wave of guilt washing over him. He had built this enterprise from the ground up. Of course, the company's welfare mattered, yet an insistent voice in his heart kept telling him that Lucy's situation was more than a passing concern. "I understand. I'm not abandoning my responsibilities, Henry. I just need a moment to figure something out." Henry pursed his lips, hesitation flickering over his stern features. "Logan, we can handle the deals, but I advise you to refocus quickly. The board wants to see you at that charity gala next week, not just as a figurehead. They need your leadership, your presence." Logan gave a subdued nod. "Noted." Henry turned to leave, but paused in the doorway. "If you need anything, personally, I mean, just say so. But don't let it consume you." With that, he was gone. Alone again, Logan thumbed through Lucy's letters, trying to piece together any clue about her family situation. Had she left their hometown under difficult circumstances? The last letter, dated nearly 2 decades ago, mentioned something about plans to move away. No details, just a hopeful sign-off that Lucy would keep in touch. His thoughts shifted to a conversation he'd had earlier that day with Dr. Rachel Thompson, a psychologist he sometimes consulted for workplace wellness programs. He had confided in her, at least in broad strokes, about reuniting with an old friend in crisis. She'd urged him to approach the situation with empathy and patience and to be prepared that Lucy might have deep-seated traumas. Dr. Thompson had also recommended local resources for individuals experiencing homelessness, stressing that Logan should reach out to professionals who understood the complexities of mental and emotional health issues. Encouraged, he called Dr. Thompson back. "I want to help her," Logan said the moment she picked up. "I don't know exactly how." "Listen first," Dr. Thompson advised calmly. "If she's been on the streets, trust doesn't come easy. Offer small steps, a meal, a safe space to talk, and connect her to proper support if she allows it." After the call, Logan set the phone aside, inhaling slowly. He realized that handing Lucy large sums of money or pushing her to accept immediate solutions might do more harm than good. Her reactions so far had been guarded, even frightened. A gentler approach was essential. Outside the closet window, the sky was turning a dusky orange, the hustle of the city winding down for the evening. Logan glanced at the letters once more. He pictured Lucy, as she was, a once vibrant teenager turned weary adult, arms wrapped around a ragged teddy bear. If he simply walked away now, he would never reconcile his conscience with the life he'd built. He felt more certain than ever that he had to find her again, with Dr. Thompson's advice in mind. With renewed resolve, he gathered a few items, a warm blanket, some bottled water, and a spare coat he kept in his office. Then he picked up his phone. "Walter," he said, voice determined, "would you drive me downtown again tonight? I need to retrace my steps." As he left, he caught a glimpse of his reflection in the glass door. His usually composed face was etched with both concern and hope. The unmistakable look of a man answering a call deeper than any business deal. The night air was crisp as Logan emerged onto the same stretch of sidewalk where he'd first seen Lucy earlier that day. Neon signs from nearby bars flickered, reflecting off damp patches on the concrete. Walter parked discreetly at the curb, watching with a blend of concern and loyalty, gripping a small care package, bottled water, a warm blanket, and a sandwich. Logan walked slowly down the street, scanning each recessed doorway and dark corner. Half a block away, he spotted her. Lucy sat on a patch of worn cardboard beneath a dimly lit street lamp, the teddy bear resting on her lap. She seemed almost asleep, but as he approached, her eyes fluttered open. A tense flicker of recognition passed over her face. She clutched the bear defensively, ready to run if necessary. Logan steadied himself, recalling Dr. Thompson's advice. He mustn't overwhelm her. Kneeling at a respectful distance, he spoke softly. "Lucy, it's me. I brought a few things. No pressure, just thought they might help tonight." She glanced at the blanket and food but said nothing, arms tightening around the tattered plush toy. A faint shiver ran through her, and Logan realized the temperature had dropped significantly since sunset. He placed the blanket within her reach, not pushing it into her hands. "Thank you," she murmured, surprising him with a single, gentle word. She pulled the blanket closer. Her eyes shifted back to him, still cautious, yet less hostile than before. A wave of relief washed over Logan. Sitting down on the cold concrete, he fought the urge to speak all at once. Instead, he just waited. The city's ambient noise, car engines, distant chatter, set a steady hum around them. Lucy finally broke the silence. What do you want?" Her voice held more sadness than anger, as if she genuinely couldn't grasp why he was here. Logan exhaled slowly. "I saw you, and..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I believe we knew each other when we were kids. You might be Lucy Sanders, from that small town near Dallas. We used to play together in my grandparents' yard." He waited for any sign of confirmation. Her gaze dropped to the teddy bear. "Lucy Sanders," she repeated quietly, as though testing whether the name still belonged to her. Then, with trembling fingers, she brushed back a lock of hair from her face. I remember you, Logan. Barely. Everything's messed up in my head. He nodded, heart pounding. I'm not here to force anything. I just want to help, if you'll let me. Logan didn't mention money or fancy solutions. Instead, he offered the simplest care, warmth, nourishment, and an open ear. Lucy stared at the sandwich he'd brought, then tentatively reached for it. She peeled back the wrapper, took a small bite, and closed her eyes as if savoring a rare comfort. It's been a while since I ate, she admitted in a near whisper. They sat in silence for several minutes. Now and then, a passerby glanced curiously, but no one stopped. In that isolated bubble, Logan felt the pressing weight of a dozen questions he wanted to ask. How did this happen? Where had she been all these years? Did she have anyone else to turn to? But he held back. He sensed that any rapid inquiry might scare her away. Eventually, Lucy looked up. She pressed the teddy bear to her chest. You're not just doing this out of guilt or pity, she asked, her voice cracking with vulnerability. No, Logan answered gently. I'm doing this because I've missed my friend. In that moment, he realized how truly he meant those words. It wasn't just nostalgia. It was a longing for a shared past that could become a bridge to her better future. She released a quiet sigh, the tension in her posture loosening slightly. The blanket draped over her shoulders, and for the first time she seemed to relax in his presence. The night felt less harsh, and he remembered Henry's warnings about neglected business obligations. Yet none of that mattered right now. All right, Lucy said softly, voice trembling but resolute. Stay for a bit, just no more questions tonight. Logan nodded. I promise. He settled in beside her on the concrete, ignoring the chill seeping through his tailored pants. Across the street, neon lights blurred, and the world carried on with its usual late-night hustle. But for Logan, this was the only place he needed to be, sitting quietly next to Lucy, offering a small measure of dignity and hope. And in this unexpected choice, abandoning his pressing work to share a moment on the sidewalk, he discovered a sense of purpose that had eluded him for far too long. Logan felt a twinge of relief stepping into Dr. Rachel Thompson's modest office on the north side of Chicago. Warm lamplight replaced the city's cold gray, and the walls held framed prints of vibrant landscapes. At 55, Dr. Thompson had an air of calm that immediately reassured those who came to her seeking clarity. She wore her silver-streaked hair pulled back and offered Logan a welcoming smile as he settled into an upholstered chair. So you've found an old friend in desperate circumstances, she began gently, flipping open a notepad. Tell me a bit more about Lucy. Logan leaned forward, elbows braced on his knees. She was my childhood friend. I lost touch with her ages ago. Then just a few days ago, I spotted her living on the street downtown. We had a brief conversation, but she's deeply wary of any help. He paused, recalling Lucy's trembling hands clutched around the worn teddy bear. I want to do something that actually works, not just throw money at her situation. Dr. Thompson nodded, jotting a quick note. Homelessness can be rooted in layers of trauma, financial struggles, abusive relationships, mental health, sometimes all of the above. The biggest hurdle is trust. Logan exhaled. She's let me sit with her, talk a bit, but if I try pushing too hard, she slips away. Then don't push, Dr. Thompson advised, her tone soft but firm. Show genuine concern in small steps. Offer consistent presence, not a grand fix. And if you can, connect her to local shelters or outreach programs. Let her set the pace. Logan nodded, tension slowly lifting from his shoulders. Dr. Thompson's words echoed what he'd already sensed. Lucy needed to feel safe before she could accept significant help. He glanced around the room, noticing diplomas from Columbia and the University of Chicago. This was a professional who understood human frailty and resilience in equal measure. "I've also got pressures at work," Logan confessed. "My CFO, Henry, keeps warning me I can't lose focus. We have major deals in play." He paused, choosing his words. "But Lucy is, well, I just can't ignore her." A small smile curved Dr. Thompson's lips. "Balancing compassion and professional life isn't easy. Still, neglecting your personal conscience could lead to bigger regrets later." She folded her hands. "Think about your resources. You're a successful businessman. Find a structured way to help Lucy without overwhelming either of you." Logan found himself warming to the idea of approaching this in a methodical way. "I want to consult a local shelter director or an outreach team. Maybe they can give me guidance." "Great idea," Dr. Thompson agreed, standing up to retrieve a small stack of brochures from a table by the window. "This is New Beginnings, a center on the west side that assists people experiencing homelessness. Marie Johnson is an excellent contact there." She handed Logan the brochure with Marie's name and phone number circled. "They can offer Lucy a transitional plan. You just have to be patient." Logan took the brochure, feeling a growing sense of direction. "Thank you. I'll reach out today." Outside Dr. Thompson's office, a light drizzle brushed the sidewalk, but Logan felt a renewed optimism. He walked to his waiting car, where Walter held the door open. As they pulled away, Logan glanced at his phone to see multiple missed calls from Henry. He knew an earful awaited him back at the office. Sure enough, upon returning to headquarters, Logan found Henry in his office doorway, arms folded. "I've been trying to reach you," Henry said, voice tight with exasperation. "We can't postpone that investor meeting again." Logan met his gaze calmly. "I know, I was consulting a professional," Henry frowned, "about the homeless woman you mentioned." His skepticism was palpable. "I get that it's personal, but we can't have you disappearing whenever." Logan held up a hand. "Henry, I promise I'll handle the business. But this is important. I'm not leaving this behind." For the first time in a while, Logan spoke with total conviction, surprising even himself. Henry sighed, stepping aside to let Logan pass. "Just don't lose sight of what keeps this company afloat." Logan gave a firm nod. "Trust me, I see it more clearly than ever." Because, as Dr. Thompson had reminded him, compassion and professional success didn't have to be enemies. And if Lucy's situation had awakened a long-dormant empathy in him, maybe it would change more than just her fate. It might change his entire view of what mattered in this life. A couple of mornings after his session with Dr. Thompson, Logan sat at his sleek glass desk, gazing out the towering window at Chicago's majestic skyline. Usually, the city's bustle energized him. Now, he felt an undercurrent of tension. He had calls to return, emails piling up, and a CFO who constantly reminded him of the looming investor conference. Yet his mind drifted to Lucy. How was she faring this morning? Did she have enough to eat? Walter tapped gently on the open door. "Sir, are you all right? You've been staring out that window for 10 minutes. Logan swiveled his chair around. "I'm going out. I'd like you to clear my next few hours," he said decisively. His calendar was crammed with back-to-back appointments, most of them crucial. But Dr. Thompson's advice resonated in his head. Consistent presence, patient approach. Lucy needed to know he wasn't just a one-time gesture. Within half an hour, Logan was in the car, heading back downtown. The morning traffic was thick, but he felt relief just leaving the office. Henry had left him multiple messages, each more urgent than the last. But Logan would deal with that later. For now, he was determined to find Lucy's usual spot, or at least see if she was around. They cruised along a row of old brick buildings, eventually stopping near a small community park. Logan grabbed a small bag of groceries he'd picked up on the way, bottled water, nutritious snacks, a couple of fresh sandwiches. He'd read somewhere that offering practical support was more meaningful than handing out cash. Stepping onto the sidewalk, he scanned the area. Much to his disappointment, Lucy wasn't curled up in her usual place near the cafe entrance. The small patch of pavement where she often sat was empty, except for a few stray wrappers. With a quiet sigh, Logan decided to check a nearby alley where he'd seen other homeless individuals gather. He walked cautiously past a graffiti-covered wall and found a cluster of people under a makeshift shelter of cardboard and tarps. The air smelled of damp concrete and faint cooking smoke. A tall, thin man with a scraggly beard looked up first. "Can I help you, buddy?" he asked, not unkindly. Logan forced a polite smile. "I'm looking for a friend, Lucy. Brown hair, about 42. She carries a teddy bear." The man exchanged glances with a woman who clutched a stained blanket around her shoulders. "Haven't seen her this morning, but she was around last night," the woman replied. Logan felt a flicker of relief. "Okay, thanks. I brought some groceries if anyone needs something." He held out the bag, noticing the cautious glances. Slowly, the group accepted the food, offering murmured thanks, but also watchful eyes. Logan realized how foreign he must look, dressed in a crisp navy suit amid their daily struggle. Still, sharing those supplies felt like a small gesture of camaraderie. "Can you let her know Logan was here if you see her?" he asked gently. "Sure," the tall man answered, eyeing the bottled water. As Logan made his way back to the sidewalk, a pang of guilt washed over him. He was stepping so far from his usual path, missing business calls and ignoring emails. Yet the moment he'd looked at those wary faces beneath the makeshift shelter, he felt more connected to something real than he had in years. Walter, who'd parked discreetly nearby, noticed Logan's subdued expression when he returned to the car. "No luck?" he asked. "No," Logan said, voice tight with disappointment. "She's moved on from the spot, at least for now." Before they drove off, Logan took one last look at the alley. This break from his meticulously managed routine felt jarring, but also strangely liberating. He'd always believed time was money, every moment lost meant risking a deal. But now, each moment he invested in searching for Lucy reminded him there were far more important currencies: empathy, genuine human connection, and the willingness to truly see someone. He intended to keep looking, no matter how unconventional his new routine became. Logan finally found Lucy later that evening near a service alley behind a row of shuttered storefronts. The area was quiet except for an occasional passing car, and the street lamps cast a dim, yellow glow on cracked pavement. Lucy was sitting on a battered lawn chair that someone must have discarded ages ago, the teddy bear perched on her lap. A couple of others lingered around a small portable heater, nodding politely in Logan's direction. Bracing himself, Logan approached slowly, remembering Dr. Thompson's emphasis on respecting Lucy's comfort zone. "Lucy," he said softly, "I've been looking for you." She glanced up, her eyes still laced with caution. She wore a mismatched bundle of sweaters, and her hair, though still tangled, seemed slightly cleaner than before. "Thought maybe you'd given up," she said, her tone guarded but calmer than in the past. Logan shook his head. "No, I just wanted to make sure you were okay. I brought some supplies if you need anything." He set down a canvas bag containing fresh socks, trail mix, and small toiletries. She studied him, then gave a faint nod of appreciation. Before either could speak further, a man named Sam, an older veteran with a worn army jacket and a gentle rasp to his voice, stepped forward. "You're the one who left those groceries, right?" Logan offered a nod. "Yes, I stopped by earlier." Hoping to see Lucy, Sam gave Lucy a glance, as though gauging her reaction. Then he reached out to shake Logan's hand. "I'm Sam. Thanks for the supplies. You don't often see folks in suits caring much about people here." His tone wasn't accusatory, just a statement of fact. Logan's chest tightened with empathy. "I'm glad to help," he replied. Lucy shifted in her chair, eyeing Logan's attire. She briefly looked at Sam, then back at Logan. "We watch out for each other around here," she said, her voice laced with both pride and a tinge of sadness. "I'd like to understand," Logan said earnestly. "I realize I've lived in a bubble. I didn't see what was happening." "Most people don't," Lucy responded quietly. Her grip on the teddy bear tightened. "There's a sort of code on these streets. You stick together, you share what you can, you don't pry into personal business unless invited." Sam nodded in agreement. "And you don't trust easily." Logan sank onto an old crate, accepting the unspoken invitation to stay. He listened as they explained the unspoken rules of survival: prime spots to find shelter, safe corners for sleeping, which local soup kitchens were more welcoming. He absorbed every word with an earnestness that surprised even him. Occasionally, Lucy fell silent, eyes drifting to the worn buildings. Logan sensed her wrestling with something, memories of the past or doubts about the present. He didn't press. Instead, he asked simple questions about where they got meals or if they had local resources. Little by little, he was stepping into their world without imposing. After a while, Sam left to talk to someone else, leaving Lucy and Logan together. The air had grown colder, and Logan noticed Lucy's breath forming small clouds in the dim light. He shrugged off his suit jacket. "You can use this," he offered gently. She hesitated before taking it. "You'll freeze," she warned, but she pulled it around her shoulders nonetheless, inhaling the lingering scent of his cologne. "Thank you." Logan watched her, remembering days when she'd been that carefree girl next door. Life had carved harsh lines into her features, but there remained a glimmer of the old Lucy beneath the exhaustion. "I wanted to say," he began softly, "I'm sorry if I came on too strong before. I'm trying to learn the right way to help." Lucy looked at him, her gaze a curious mix of guarded and grateful. "I see that, and I appreciate it." She lowered her eyes, as if admitting that cost her something. "I'm not ready for big changes yet, but it helps, knowing you aren't just going to disappear." His heart clenched at her vulnerability. "I'm here," he promised gently. "And if there's anything you need that I can do, let me know." A quiet calm settled between them. No big declarations, no frantic pleas, just a subtle shift in Lucy's posture, a softening of her eyes. For the first time, Logan felt he wasn't standing outside looking in. He was tentatively stepping into Lucy's world, learning its unspoken rules, and in doing so, forging a fragile bridge between them. Over the next few days, Lucy allowed Logan small glimpses of the girl she used to be. They occasionally found a quiet corner, sometimes on the edge of that same alley, sometimes in a nearby park, with brittle autumn leaves underfoot. During these brief interludes, Lucy shared bits of their shared past, helping Logan recall half-forgotten moments from decades earlier. "Do you remember," she asked one morning, "the time we raced our bikes through the orchard behind your grandparents' house?" She spoke so softly that Logan almost missed it, but when he caught the words, his face lit up. "Vaguely," he admitted, smiling. "I remember there was a row of apple trees, and you always pedaled faster than me." Lucy's lips twitched into a thin smile, the faintest echo of her former mischievous grin. "And you acted all grumpy about it," she teased, hugging her teddy bear closer. "But you'd always let me win in the end. You'd pretend your chain came loose or your tire was flat." Logan chuckled, raking a hand through his dark hair. I guess chivalry starts young. They fell into a moment of silence, both seemingly lost in the swirl of memories. The crisp Chicago breeze rustled the skeletal branches above, sending leaves dancing around them. Lucy's shoulders eased slightly, and she let out a slow breath. Talking about that orchard, I haven't thought about it in years. Logan nodded, feeling a swell of melancholy. I hadn't either, not until I saw you with that teddy bear. It reminded me of the stuffed animals you always carried around. Her expression grew distant. This was, well, it's pretty much all I have left. I know it's silly, but it feels like a tiny piece of something good I used to have. He hesitated, sensing this was a window into Lucy's deeper feelings. Rather than push further, he simply said, It's not silly. I'm glad you kept it. He made a mental note to bring up the old childhood items he still had stored away somewhere. Maybe that could be a point of connection later, when she was ready. Their conversation meandered to talk of old classmates, the time Lucy broke her wrist falling off a swing set, and how Logan's grandparents used to bake apple pies for everyone in the neighborhood. For a while, it felt like they were just two old friends catching up, except the city noises and the harsh reality of Lucy's current life underscored how far they'd drifted from that simpler time. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky with deep oranges and purples, Lucy grew introspective. I never meant for life to turn out this way, she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. Somewhere along the line, I lost control. Logan's heart clenched with compassion. He reached out and lightly squeezed her hand. It's not too late, Lucy, he said quietly. We can't undo the past, but the future is still wide open. She pulled her hand back, but gently, not in rejection, more like self-protection. You say that, but I've got too many scars. I'm not the same girl I was in that orchard. She looked at the bruises on her wrist, signs of rough living, then turned her gaze away. Logan inhaled, trying to steady his emotions. I'm different, too, he acknowledged. I spent years chasing success, and somewhere along the way, I built walls around me. But seeing you again, it's making me remember who I used to be, too. The corners of Lucy's mouth curved in a subtle, sad smile. So, we're both rediscovering ourselves. Exactly, Logan said gently. Maybe we can figure out this new version of ourselves together. She offered a slow nod, not quite committing to anything, but not dismissing him either. For now, that was enough. Their childhood bond, though battered and neglected, still flickered between them. Each memory shared seemed to reignite a small piece of who they once were, a step toward healing, even if the journey stretched out like a long road ahead. On a cool Wednesday afternoon, Logan stepped out of his sedan in front of a modest brick building marked with a sign reading New Beginnings Community Center. The bustling sounds of volunteer workers greeted him as he pushed through the glass doors. Inside, the space was small but efficient, a lobby with plastic chairs, a reception window, and bulletin boards filled with flyers advertising job training programs and meal schedules. He approached the desk and cleared his throat. I'm looking for Marie Johnson, he said, recalling Dr. Thompson's recommendation. The receptionist, a young man with braided hair, disappeared briefly, returning moments later with a woman in her early 40s, wearing a bright purple sweater and warm smile. You must be Logan, the woman said, offering a handshake. I'm Marie Johnson. Dr. Thompson told me you might come by. Marie's direct but welcoming demeanor instantly put Logan at ease. She was African-American, with her hair in neat twists and a confident air about her. Dr. Thompson mentioned you're concerned about a friend named Lucy, she asked, guiding him into a small office crammed with file boxes and a second-hand computer. Logan settled into a chair, feeling both hopeful and nervous. Yes, she's been living on the streets. not entirely trusting of formal help, but I can see she needs it. I want to figure out a way to support her that doesn't scare her off." Marie nodded thoughtfully, leaning forward. "That's common. A lot of folks experiencing homelessness have had bad run-ins with shelters or bureaucratic systems, or they've been promised help only to be let down. Consistency and respect go a long way." Logan explained Lucy's situation as best he understood. Her wariness, her occasional willingness to talk, her closeness to a few peers like Sam. Marie listened intently, jotting notes on a legal pad. "We offer transitional housing programs here," she said. "But getting someone to agree is often the hardest step. We do have outreach workers who build relationships over time, connecting people to medical care, counseling, and basic needs." "That sounds promising," Logan said. "I've realized I can't do this alone. Lucy needs a broader network." Marie offered a reassuring smile. "We can work together. Our volunteers can meet Lucy gradually, no pressure. If she's open to it, we can help her apply for low-cost housing or a part-time job. Even small steps matter." They walked through the center, passing a cluttered supply closet and a dining hall where volunteers prepared pans of baked chicken for the nightly meal service. Jack Moore, a 35-year-old volunteer, introduced himself. He was tall, with a friendly grin and the easy confidence of someone who had once walked a tough path. "I've been where Lucy is," he said, frankly. "Lost my home after the recession in 2008. Lived in my car for a year. If she needs someone who understands, I'm happy to talk." Logan felt a flicker of relief that Lucy wouldn't be alone if she agreed to come here. He could imagine her connecting with someone like Jack, who wouldn't judge her. At the same time, he worried about how she'd react to any mention of structured programs. Marie sensed his hesitation. "We won't force anything on her," she said, her tone empathic. "We'll simply show up, offer help, and respect her timeline. Sometimes it takes weeks or months before a person is ready." Logan ran his hand over the back of his neck. "I appreciate that. She's been skittish even around me." "That's normal," Marie replied. "Just keep being consistent. Show her she matters. We'll do the same." As Logan prepared to leave, he gathered a handful of pamphlets and jotted down phone numbers. Shaking Marie's hand, he thanked her. "This is more help than you know. I'll try to encourage Lucy, but let her make her own choices." Marie's eyes sparkled with compassion. "That's exactly how we do it here. No judgment, no rush, just genuine support." Walking back toward his car, Logan felt lighter. For the first time, he wasn't trying to fix Lucy's situation alone. He'd discovered new allies, people who believed in second chances. In a world that often felt harsh, it was inspiring to see a community willing to stand by those who'd slipped through the cracks. If Lucy was willing, she'd have an entire team behind her. Late that evening, Logan found Lucy near the entrance of an abandoned building with boarded-up windows. A faint moonlight revealed a flash of relief in her eyes when she recognized him approaching. But before he could say much, she stiffened as if anticipating bad news. "I heard you stopped by that community center," she said abruptly, folding her arms around the teddy bear. "Marie and Jack came looking for me earlier." Logan felt a wave of anxiety ripple through him. He hadn't expected Marie's outreach to happen this fast, and Lucy's guarded tone set off alarm bells. "Yes, I just wanted to see what they offered," he explained carefully, stopping a few steps away to respect her space. "They're good people." Lucy's jaw tightened. "I've been to shelters before, Logan. Places with rules and checklists and staff who barely treat you like a person. I've had enough of that." The tension in her voice struck him like a jolt. He could almost see the fear underlying her anger, a fear of returning to a system that might have failed her. "I understand," Logan said softly, lifting both hands in a sign of peace. "Marie's center is different, though. They do smaller programs, more personalized. But I promise I won't force you. She glared at him, conflict flickering in her expression. Everyone says they're different, she muttered. Her grip on the teddy bear intensified, knuckles whitening. I can't handle the thought of being locked up or having every move watched. I'd rather stay here where I know how to survive. Logan swallowed hard, realizing this was exactly the kind of emotional obstacle Dr. Thompson had warned him about. Lucy's distrust ran deeper than any single conversation could fix. Perhaps she'd been in a shelter that felt like prison, or maybe she'd encountered staff who treated her as a statistic. The specifics didn't matter. Her fear was real. I'm sorry, he said, keeping his voice gentle. I should have talked to you first, found out how you felt about it. She tightened her coat around her shoulders. The night air was chilly, and Logan noticed a subtle tremor in her posture. Yeah, well, now they know where I stay, she said with a tremor of frustration. I don't want them coming around to push me into a program. Logan sighed inwardly. This was precisely the complication he'd hoped to avoid. Marie and Jack won't pressure you, he promised. They respect your pace, but I told them you might eventually want help. Lucy let out a bitter laugh. Want help? Sure, I want everything to be magically better. But you don't know what it's like, giving up your freedom for someone else's rules. A wave of empathy washed over Logan. Instead of arguing, he looked around, the boarded windows, crumbling brick, and the quiet hum of distant traffic. No, Lucy, I don't know, he admitted. I can only imagine how hurtful the system has been. But if you do ever feel ready, I promise I'll stand by you to make sure it's on your terms. No lock-ins, no humiliations. Her eyes glistened for a moment before she blinked back the threat of tears. She tugged the teddy bear closer, then turned slightly away, as if needing a moment to collect herself. I hate being this suspicious, she murmured, almost to herself. Tentatively, Logan reached out to touch her shoulder. To his relief, she didn't pull away this time, though her posture remained rigid. Take your time, he said softly. I'm not going anywhere, Lucy nodded, drawing in a shaky breath. I believe you, she whispered, though doubt still clouded her gaze. Logan felt the tension in the air subside just a fraction. It was clear that bridging this gap would demand more patience than he'd ever shown in his life. Even small steps could trigger Lucy's fears, making her retreat. Yet in her eyes, he glimpsed a flicker of trust she was fighting to hold on to. Thank you, he said quietly, unsure what else to offer. He knew one misstep could drive her away, but he'd made a choice to hold fast, even if the obstacles towered. Let the business world question his priorities. Lucy's well-being took precedence tonight. A chill wind swept across the Chicago streets as Logan parked near a temporary shelter named Safe Nights, a modest building known for accepting people on a no-questions-asked basis. He'd heard through Jack Moore that Lucy might be there, at least to shower and grab a meal. The moment he stepped inside the lobby, a fluorescent-lit space with folded cots stacked along the walls, he spotted her. Lucy stood near the reception desk, fiddling with the teddy bear's matted ear while clutching a threadbare backpack against her side. He approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. She turned at the sound of his footsteps, and relief flickered in her eyes before she masked it with a guarded expression. You found me again, she said in a low voice, tilting her head toward a hallway leading to the dormitory. I was only going to clean up and leave. Logan held up his hands in a gesture of reassurance. No pressure, he said softly. I just wanted to see how you were doing. Do you need anything right now? Lucy paused, then nodded at the hallway. They let me take a quick shower, she admitted. Felt weird, being in a place with staff and all, but it wasn't too bad. Her tone was tentative, as though she was still deciding whether to trust this environment. They settled in two folding chairs by a battered vending machine that hummed quietly against one wall. Lucy tapped her toe against the floor, scanning the cramped reception area. "I'm not staying," she repeated, almost like an apology. "But it's nice to feel, well, a little more human again." Logan offered a gentle smile. "That's a start. Small steps, right?" She hesitated, hugging the teddy bear. "I guess I have a hard time with bigger steps." There was a tremor in her voice that hinted at both shame and determination. "All these people around me, some are way worse off, some seem better. I don't know where I fit in." "You're doing something good for yourself," Logan replied, careful not to sound patronizing. "That alone is worth celebrating." A few minutes later, a staff member wearing a Safe Nights t-shirt approached with a clipboard. She greeted Lucy by name, pointing out a corner table where volunteers had laid out clothing donations. Lucy shot Logan a wary look, then rose to check if any of the items would fit her. While she browsed, Logan struck up a brief conversation with the staff member, a middle-aged woman named Tanya. "Lucy's quiet but polite," Tanya observed, offering a kind smile. "She took the offer of a shower today, which is a good sign. Some folks won't even step inside." Logan felt a glimmer of hope. "I'm glad she gave it a chance. She's really been through a lot." Tanya nodded. "She has. If she ever wants to stay overnight, I'll do what I can to make it comfortable, but it's up to her." By the time Lucy returned, she'd selected a pair of navy sweatpants and a faded hoodie. She clutched them to her chest, as though they were precious. "I can just leave when I'm done, right?" she asked Tanya, her eyes darting anxiously toward the exit. "Of course," Tanya assured, giving Lucy a gentle pat on the arm. "No one's going to lock you in, I promise." Lucy let out a breath, nodding. Then she turned to Logan. "You see," she said, a faint quiver in her voice, "it's a small victory. I showed up on my own, got a shower, picked some clothes." Logan recognized the mixture of pride and vulnerability flickering through her expression. "I'm proud of you," he said simply. He understood that even these minor acts, stepping into a shelter, accepting fresh clothing, were monumental steps for her. "Do you feel okay about it?" he asked gently. She lifted a shoulder in a half shrug. "Okay enough. It's not forever, but it's something." He offered her a relieved smile. "That's all we can ask for today." Inwardly, he celebrated the moment as well, knowing how hard it was for Lucy to trust any institution. Out loud, he kept it low-key, matching her pace. This wasn't a triumph that solved everything, but it was a meaningful test, an incremental success that showed Lucy she could accept a little help without losing herself. They left Safe Nights together, stepping back into the brisk evening. Lucy hoisted the teddy bear under one arm while carefully holding her new clothes under the other. The air felt charged with possibility, as if a door had cracked open ever so slightly. For the first time in a long while, Lucy wore a look that suggested she believed in small victories and that, perhaps, there could be more to come. The following afternoon, Logan drove Lucy to a quiet park on Chicago's west side, lined with ancient oaks that rustled in the chilly breeze. He'd offered to buy her lunch from a nearby food truck, a simple burger and fries, hoping to provide some normalcy amidst her unsettled life. They found a bench near a small pond, and as they ate, Lucy's eyes drifted over the ducks skimming the water's surface. For a while they chatted about mundane things, how crisp the leaves looked in the fall light, whether the city's winter would be harsher this year, but Logan sensed an undercurrent of tension in Lucy's voice. She seemed preoccupied, as if the small talk was a shield against something more profound lingering below. Eventually, she set down her burger, staring at the pond with a distant gaze. "I guess you want to know how I ended up living on the streets," she said flatly. "Everyone always does." Logan paused, unsure how to respond without overstepping. "If you're comfortable sharing, I'm here to listen," he offered quietly. If not, I won't pry. She let out a breath that sounded almost like a soft laugh. I appreciate that. But maybe it's time I tell someone. Hugging the teddy bear against her side, she began haltingly. After high school, I moved around a lot. Thought I found love. Turned out it was toxic. There was a man who controlled everything. My money, where I went, who I saw. Her voice quavered, and she swallowed hard. He had a mean streak. I tried to leave, but every time I did, he'd find me. Logan felt a pang of outrage twist in his gut, though he kept his tone gentle. I'm sorry, Lucy. No one should have to live that way. She nodded, her gaze still fixed on the ducks. One day, I just couldn't do it anymore. I packed what little I had and ran. But running doesn't solve everything. I couldn't hold a job when I was constantly looking over my shoulder. I ended up losing my apartment. You know how it goes. No address, no job, no address. It spiraled. Logan's heart ached at her matter-of-fact explanation. Memories of their carefree childhood played in the back of his mind, contrasting sharply with the pain etched in Lucy's expression. Why didn't you reach out to me, or someone else from back home? He asked softly, though he suspected the answer. Lucy gave a hollow shrug. Shame. Fear. I had this twisted idea that if I couldn't make it on my own, I didn't deserve anyone's help, and by the time I realized I couldn't do it alone, I was already in a dark place mentally. I thought I'd disappointed everyone who ever cared about me. Logan gently placed a hand over hers, feeling a surge of protectiveness. I understand, but you haven't disappointed me, Lucy. Not now, not ever. She turned her gaze to him, eyes brimming with tears that she fought to hold back. It's just these scars. They're not always visible, but they're there. Every time I try to take a step forward, I remember how quickly everything can be taken away. He absorbed her words, throat tightening. She had been holding this pain for years. You're stronger than you know, he said, voice thick with emotion, and those scars don't define you. They're just part of what you've been through. Lucy gripped the teddy bear, letting a tear slip down her cheek. I'm terrified of hoping, she whispered, of trusting someone again. Logan gently pressed a napkin into her hand. I won't pretend to have all the answers, but I can promise I'll walk alongside you at your pace. Nobody's going to drag you somewhere you don't want to go. A flicker of gratitude crossed her face as she dabbed her tears away. Thank you, she whispered, for letting me speak it out loud. It helps, somehow. They stayed on that bench until dusk, letting the sun sink behind the towering oaks. Lucy's confession hung in the air between them, weighty, yet strangely cleansing. Logan left that evening more determined than ever to help her rediscover a sense of safety. Because beneath those scars, he could still see the spark of a hopeful, imaginative girl, one who deserved every chance at a better life. Over the next few days, Lucy seemed to retreat into herself. She avoided safe nights, evaded Marie's kind attempts at outreach, and brushed off Logan's gentle invitations to meet. Whenever he swung by her usual spots, near that abandoned building or the cafe downtown, he couldn't find her. Anxious thoughts gnawed at him. Had he pushed too far by encouraging her to open up? Had her revelations unleashed a wave of fear? One blustery afternoon, the call he dreaded came from Jack Moore at New Beginnings. Logan, Jack said, voice tense. Lucy had a meltdown last night. Marie tried to say hi, but Lucy took off, looking really distraught. Said she'd never go to a shelter again, that trusting folks would only backfire. Logan's gut twisted. Have you seen her since? He asked, gripping the phone. No, Sam mentioned she was pacing near the train station. By the time anyone got there, she was gone. We're worried. Logan's mind raced. The temperature was dropping below freezing at night, and Lucy had no stable place to sleep. He cleared his schedule without a second thought, ignoring the wave of frustration he knew Henry would unleash. Finding Lucy became top priority. "I'll check around. Call me if you hear anything." For hours, Logan roamed the streets with Walter, who drove him through back alleys and overpasses illuminated by the city's harsh, flickering lights. They stopped at a soup kitchen near the old industrial district, but no one had seen her. They checked a couple of bus shelters, a run-down convenience store, and even the hospital ER, just in case. At each dead end, Logan's anxiety grew. "Sir, we've been searching for hours," Walter said gently as the clock ticked past midnight. "You need to rest." Logan, eyes heavy with worry, ran a hand through his hair. "I can't rest until I find her," he muttered, scanning another deserted sidewalk. The occasional figure shuffled past, huddled in blankets, but none was Lucy. He felt guilt simmering in his chest, recalling how he'd once prided himself on his problem-solving ability. Yet now, all that business acumen seemed useless. By the time they pulled over near a dimly lit diner, Logan's nerves were frayed. He stepped inside, welcomed by a whiff of stale coffee and fluorescent lights. The waitress, a tired woman in her 60s, recognized Lucy's description: brown hair, carrying a teddy bear. "She came by earlier," the waitress said, stirring sugar into a styrofoam cup. "Looked upset. Ordered coffee, then left in a hurry." Logan felt a flicker of hope. "How long ago?" "Couple hours," she replied, sympathy in her eyes. Looked like she might have headed toward the old railway yard. He thanked her and rushed back to the car, urging Walter to drive toward the fenced perimeter of the railway yard. His pulse pounded at the thought of Lucy alone in that labyrinth of deserted tracks and rusting freight cars. The area wasn't exactly safe. Empty spaces often drew people seeking shelter, as well as those with rough intentions. When they arrived, the moon was high, illuminating patches of gravel and abandoned rail lines. Logan grabbed a flashlight from the trunk, ignoring the biting cold. "I'll check around," he told Walter. "Stay here and keep an eye out." He wandered between rows of idle freight cars, calling Lucy's name into the hush of the night. An icy wind whipped his face, and each echo of his voice felt ominous. His mind conjured terrible scenarios, her slipping on the tracks, encountering dangerous strangers, or collapsing from exhaustion and cold. Eventually, the flashlight beam caught something, a small shape huddled behind a discarded crate. Heart-hammering, Logan advanced. "Lucy," he whispered, shining the light gently so as not to blind her. She lifted her head, eyes red from crying or perhaps from the biting wind. Her hair, tangled, concealed part of her face. She trembled visibly, arms clutching the teddy bear. A surge of relief nearly overwhelmed him. "Oh, thank God," he breathed, kneeling down beside her. But the moment he reached for her, she flinched away, tears streaking her cheeks. "Everything's too much," she choked out, voice raw. I can't do this anymore." Logan's heart clenched. She was at a breaking point. Fragile as he'd never seen, without hesitation, he removed his coat, draping it over her shoulders. "You don't have to do it alone," he said softly, voice trembling. "I'm here, Lucy. We'll figure this out." She pressed her face into the teddy bear, sobbing softly. In the desolate railway yard, Logan cradled her trembling form, vowing he wouldn't let her slip away again, not if he could help it. With Lucy on the verge of collapse in the cold railway yard, Logan carefully helped her to her feet. She wavered, shivering uncontrollably, clinging to the teddy bear as if it were a lifeline. Walter rushed over with a blanket from the car, and together they guided Lucy into the warm interior of the sedan. "Hospital?" Walter asked, casting an anxious glance at Lucy's pale face. Logan hesitated. Lucy had long displayed a strong aversion to institutional settings. But her weakened state worried him. "Let's take her to the small volunteer clinic near New Beginnings," he decided at last. "I think she'll accept that more than a hospital ER." Walter nodded, and the sedan glided through dimly lit streets until they reached a humble storefront with a hand-painted sign reading Community Night Clinic. The windows cast a faint glow onto the deserted sidewalk. Inside, the clinic was modest but clean. Several folding chairs, a reception desk, and 2 curtained-off examination areas. The smell of antiseptic hung in the air. A volunteer nurse, mid-30s with compassionate eyes, rushed forward as soon as Logan helped Lucy inside. "Sit her down here," she instructed softly, guiding Lucy to a makeshift bed. Lucy's eyes fluttered. She was conscious, but clearly exhausted, her cheeks flushed from windburn. Logan stayed by her side, heart pounding. "She's been living on the street," he explained to the nurse. "I'm worried about hypothermia or dehydration." The nurse quickly checked Lucy's temperature and vital signs. Another volunteer hooked up an IV line to provide fluids. Lucy winced at the needle, but her gaze remained fixed on Logan, as though drawing solace from his presence. "Thank you," she mumbled, her voice barely audible. "It's all right," he whispered, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. "We're here. You're going to be okay." Marie Johnson appeared moments later, alerted by a phone call from Jack. Dressed in casual jeans and a sweater, she exuded relief and concern in equal measure. "Lucy, sweetie, we've got you," she said, brushing Lucy's hair back gently. Despite Lucy's meltdown earlier, Marie's demeanor showed no judgment, only an unwavering support. An hour passed in a whirl of medical checks. Lucy's shivers slowly subsided, though her face remained drawn and weary. Finally, the nurse approached Logan. "She's stable, just needs rest and nourishment. We can keep her here overnight. It's not a full hospital, but we can monitor her vitals." Logan swallowed a surge of gratitude. "Thank you. If that's okay with Lucy." He glanced at her, worried she'd refuse, but she gave a faint nod, too fatigued to speak much. Relieved, Logan joined Marie in the clinic's small waiting area. "Is she going to recover?" he asked, pressing both hands together as if in prayer. Marie nodded, her expression sympathetic. "Physically, she should, if she follows through with care. Emotionally, that's another story, but this is a safe space. We won't push her. She can stay the night, warm and looked after." Logan gazed at the curtained cot where Lucy rested, her silhouette outlined by the clinic's overhead lamp. He felt a surge of protectiveness he couldn't fully explain, a determination that this time her story would not end in heartbreak. "I'll stay here too," he decided. "I don't want her waking up alone, thinking she's been abandoned." Marie gave his arm a light squeeze. "You're a good man, Logan. She's lucky to have someone who won't give up." Walter, who had waited in the reception area, approached quietly. "The car's outside if you need anything, sir. I can grab coffee or whatever else you require." Logan glanced at his watch. Well past midnight again. "Thanks, Walter. You've done enough for tonight. Go home, get some rest. I'll call you if I need anything." Walter hesitated, then nodded. "Take care, Mr. Caldwell, and take care of her." With that, he left, leaving the small circle of dedicated volunteers and Logan to watch over Lucy. Through the night, Lucy dozed fitfully, sometimes tossing in restless dreams. Occasionally, Logan would hear her whimper, and he'd hover near, murmuring quiet reassurances. The clinic's fluorescent light buzzed softly, and the volunteer nurse checked on Lucy's IV drip every hour. Though far from a luxurious place, the clinic felt like a beacon of compassion. In that humble setting, among battered chairs and worn-out medical charts, Lucy found a moment's reprieve from the merciless cold, and Logan found renewed hope. Sometimes, even the faintest light in the darkness could guide a soul back from the brink. By the next morning, Lucy's color had improved, and the dark circles under her eyes seemed less pronounced. The volunteer nurse removed the IV line, offering Lucy a cup of warm tea. She sipped gingerly, the steam fogging up her already tired gaze. Logan sat beside her cot, running a hand gently over the back of the teddy bear resting by her pillow. "How are you feeling?" he asked softly. Lucy set the teacup down, sighing. "Better than last night," she admitted. "I'm still shaky, but I'm not freezing to death anymore." Her faint attempt at humor was a welcome sign. Marie Johnson stepped in, a file folder in hand. "Morning, Lucy," she greeted warmly. "I have an idea, if you're up for it." She placed the folder on a nearby tray. "Jack knows a small laundry service that hires part-time and doesn't ask for a permanent address. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work and it might help you earn a little money. Plus, it's near a transitional house we sometimes use. You could check it out, no obligation." Lucy's eyes flickered with uncertainty. She looked to Logan, her voice nearly a whisper. A job," Marie offered a gentle nod. "Only if you feel ready to try. We're not forcing anything, but it could be a path toward a more stable life." Logan watched Lucy carefully. This was the moment she might recoil from the thought of a formal arrangement. Yet he saw a spark of possibility in her gaze, perhaps a desire to stand on her own feet, however unsteady. He resisted the urge to persuade or push, recalling how any hint of pressure could backfire. Finally, Lucy cleared her throat. "I'm not sure if I can handle a real schedule," she said, fiddling with a loose thread on the blanket. "But maybe I could try a couple of shifts, see how it goes." "That's perfect," Marie said, genuine relief in her tone. "We'll introduce you to the manager. He's used to hiring folks who need a fresh start." She then glanced at Logan. "If Lucy agrees, we can also help set her up in a small room, not a big shelter, more like a short-term boarding space, just a single room with a key, so she feels safe." Lucy's shoulders relaxed visibly. "A room with a lock?" she asked, as though that concept alone was both comforting and intimidating. "And I can come and go as I want?" Marie nodded. "Absolutely. You'll have privacy. It's part of a building we lease for transitional housing. You just need to follow a couple of rules, like no overnight guests without permission and no illegal substances on the premises." Lucy swallowed, considering the conditions. "I think I could handle that." Logan felt a surge of pride on her behalf. She was choosing to step forward, albeit cautiously. "I can help with any deposit you need," he offered gently, trying not to sound overbearing. "Only if you want me to." Lucy gave him a long look, then smiled, soft, genuine. "That would help," she admitted, "but I want to pay you back eventually." He nodded. Of course. He understood her need to maintain dignity in this process. After discussing logistics with Marie, they arranged for Lucy to meet the laundry service manager the following day. The clinic staff cleared her to leave, satisfied she was stable enough. Before departing, Lucy turned to the volunteer nurse and Marie. "Thank you for not treating me like a problem," she said quietly, eyes glistening. It means a lot." They stepped outside into the cool morning air. Lucy's hand trembled slightly around the teddy bear, but her stance was more resolute than Logan had ever seen. Walter, waiting nearby, offered them a discreet smile as they approached the car. "Ma'am," he said politely, opening the back door. Lucy slipped in, and Logan followed. On the drive, Lucy stared out the window at the passing buildings. After a moment, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "For the first time in a long time," she said, "I feel like I can see a future. It's fuzzy, but it's there." Logan reached over and gently squeezed her hand. "We'll take it one step at a time," he reminded her, voice warm with encouragement. In that fleeting moment, all the heartache and confusion of the past week seemed to condense into a single ray of possibility. The path wasn't easy, But it was growing clearer, and Lucy wasn't walking it alone anymore. Logan woke up before dawn, the weight of the day pressing on his chest. He had a crucial meeting with his company's board and major investors, a moment when his leadership would be tested to the fullest. Across the city, Lucy prepared herself for a different kind of battle, though perhaps no less intimidating. Her first shift at the laundry service Marie had arranged. By 7 o'clock, Logan stood in front of a mirror in his penthouse, adjusting his tie. His reflection revealed a man who, months earlier, would have felt unstoppable. Now, the reflection carried new depth, the lingering concern for Lucy, the empathy he'd gained from witnessing life on the streets, and the firm conviction that success meant more than just profit. Meanwhile, Lucy stepped onto a city bus, the teddy bear carefully wrapped in her backpack. She wore a borrowed jacket over plain slacks and a faded polo shirt. Around her, other commuters held insulated coffee cups and scrolled through their phones. Lucy felt the nervous flutter in her stomach. The manager at the laundry had promised a no-pressure environment, but she still feared judgment, or worse, failure. At the towering conference center downtown, Logan entered a gleaming boardroom where Henry Williamson and the other executives waited. Henry offered a tight nod, clearly uneasy about whether Logan would stay the course. The men and women at the table represented major shareholders, each expecting a strong reassurance of the company's profitability. Logan took a seat at the head, took a breath, and let his gaze settle across the room. "We've had an interesting quarter," he began, pushing away the usual corporate script. "I know some of you have concerns about my recent focus on community outreach and philanthropy." He glanced at Henry, whose posture stiffened. "But let me assure you, caring about people, both inside and outside this firm, doesn't weaken our bottom line. It strengthens our reputation, our morale, and ultimately our long-term success." A hushed silence descended. Some board members exchanged uncertain glances. One of the senior investors, a woman named Mrs. Burke, cleared her throat. "Mr. Caldwell, are we to understand that you're diverting resources to social programs instead of driving up returns?" Logan allowed himself a measured smile. "Not diverting, Mrs. Burke. Investing. Our brand image and customer loyalty benefit when we're known for doing what's right." He clicked a remote A, revealing slides that showed a rise in public goodwill and media coverage, praising the company's compassionate leadership. "You'll see from the numbers, revenues this past quarter actually exceeded expectations. Compassion doesn't contradict profit." Henry's lips pressed together, though he said nothing. Another board member, a younger man, flipped through the report. He appeared impressed. "Well," he said, raising an eyebrow, "if the numbers are this strong, maybe there's room to expand some charitable partnerships." Logan seized that moment. Exactly. When we invest in people, we earn trust, and that trust translates to sustainable growth. He paused, recalling Lucy's struggles and how the world could be kinder to individuals like her if more companies cared. "I'm committed to leading with empathy, not just crunching numbers. I hope you'll stand with me." A murmur ran around the table, half surprise, half cautious approval. Mrs. Burke pursed her lips, then sighed. "Mr. Caldwell, you've always delivered results, even if your methods have evolved. Let's see where this approach takes us." Relief coursed through Logan. He thanked the board for their open-mindedness, well aware this victory wasn't absolute. He would need to keep proving that empathy and profit could coexist, yet he felt steadied, confident in a path that aligned with who he'd become. Across town, Lucy faced her own confrontation at the laundry. The machines roared, filling the air with the scent of detergent and steam. She stood behind the small payment counter, trying not to panic at the register's buttons. After a few shaky attempts, she figured it out. A customer, an older man in a flannel shirt, thanked her politely. No one mocked her inexperience. A co-worker, Clara, offered patient tips on folding shirts and handling money. Though Lucy's heart pounded each time the door swung open, she persevered. Each successful transaction felt like a small triumph, echoing Logan's success in the boardroom. By late afternoon, she had endured the fear and found she could do the job. In her mind, she pictured that orchard from her childhood, a place where she once believed anything was possible. Miles apart, both Lucy and Logan had stared down their deepest insecurities. And in that parallel confrontation, each discovered a renewed sense of purpose, a confirmation that neither empathy nor personal growth were weaknesses. They were, in fact, the foundation of a more meaningful life. 2 days after the investor meeting and Lucy's first shift, a calmer rhythm took hold. Lucy repeated her part-time hours at the laundry, gradually learning to greet customers with a shy smile and growing confidence. She had never seen her own name on a weekly schedule before. It felt surreal and empowering. Each day that passed, she arrived on time and finished her tasks without running away, despite the nagging anxiety that could flare if she heard a sudden loud noise or an unexpected voice. On a crisp afternoon, Logan picked her up after work. They drove in comfortable silence to a quiet family restaurant they used to frequent in their teenage years, now renovated, but still holding a hint of nostalgia. Once inside, a friendly hostess with a bright smile led them to a small booth by the window. The scent of grilled burgers and melted cheese filled the air, stirring a pang of memory in Lucy's chest. "Thanks for suggesting this place," Lucy said, her gaze wandering over the vintage photos on the walls. "I can almost see us kids again, eating fries and talking about what we wanted to be when we grew up." Logan smiled, leaning forward so she could hear him over the low hum of chatter. "I remember once we swore we'd open a bookstore together," he said with a chuckle. "You'd pick out all the children's stories, and I'd manage the sports magazines." She let out a soft laugh. "We were dreamers back then, huh?" The waitress arrived, and they ordered simple meals, Lucy opting for a turkey club sandwich, Logan for a grilled chicken salad. As they waited, Lucy grew quiet, her eyes drifting to the teddy bear tucked securely in her new canvas bag. "You ever wonder how we ended up here?" she murmured. "Back in a booth, but with so many scars we never imagined." Logan nodded solemnly. "Life isn't a straight line. It's full of surprises, good and bad." He gently reached across the table to place his hand over hers. "What matters is that we're still here, trying to heal, together." Lucy's eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and lingering sadness. "I've been talking to Marie about maybe seeing a counselor," she confessed, voice tight. "The nightmares, the panic attacks. I realize they're not going away on their own." Logan squeezed her hand encouragingly. "That's a brave step," he said. "I'm proud of you for considering it." She nodded. "I'm tired of feeling broken. I want to learn how to trust myself and others again. It's scary, but so was taking that first shift at the laundry. And I survived. Their food arrived, and the conversation turned lighter. Logan recounted the latest developments at his company, including the cautious yet positive reaction from his board. Lucy teased him about his big-shot empire, and he laughed at the absurdity of how much he used to measure success by spreadsheets alone. Now, success felt different, more human. After the meal, they strolled outside into a crisp twilight, the sky brushed with pale purples and oranges. Logan offered his arm, and Lucy accepted it, leaning into him slightly. They walked down the sidewalk, passing a few local shops decorated for autumn with scarecrows and bright orange pumpkins. The comfort of an ordinary evening, just two people enjoying each other's company, felt almost miraculous in its simplicity. They reached the car, and Logan paused before opening the passenger door. "Lucy," he said softly, his gaze meeting hers, "I want you to know I see all the strength inside you. You're not defined by your past." A flicker of emotion passed across her face, and she offered a faint but genuine smile. "I'm starting to believe that," she whispered, stepping closer. In a surge of gratitude, she wrapped her arms around him, resting her head against his shoulder. He held her gently, feeling the subtle tremor in her body, part relief, part lingering fear. But neither said anything. They simply allowed the moment to affirm that they were on this path together, wounds and all. Back at the small apartment Lucy was renting, a modest place but hers nonetheless, she turned to him before stepping inside. "Thanks for dinner, and for seeing me, really seeing me." Logan reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Always," he promised, voice low. Then he watched her disappear behind the door, understanding that healing wasn't an event, but a process, one that Lucy was now courageous enough to embrace. Early on a Saturday morning, Logan and Lucy climbed into his car for a trip out of Chicago. A thin fog clung to the streets, and for once, the city's rush felt distant. Logan had invited Lucy to revisit their childhood hometown in Texas, a chance to confront and reclaim parts of themselves they'd left behind. She'd hesitated initially, worried about painful memories, but something in her eyes lit up at the idea of returning to the place where they once laughed, dreamed, and believed in endless possibilities. After a couple of hours in the air, Logan's private plane offering a quick hop south, they drove the last stretch in a rental car, the landscape shifting from skyscrapers to open fields. Lucy gazed out at dusty roads bordered by stretches of farmland. "I'd forgotten how wide the sky is here," she murmured, hugging the teddy bear on her lap. "Makes me feel small, but in a good way." Logan smiled, recalling summers spent racing through tall grass. "This is where we learned to ride bikes, where we tried to build a treehouse and fell out of it on day one." He shot her a playful glance, hoping to spark a bit of that carefree spirit. They arrived at what used to be Logan's grandparents' property, a modest house now owned by distant relatives. The current residents allowed them a quick visit, so Logan and Lucy walked through the weathered gate. Hearing the creak that had once startled them as kids after curfew, a wave of nostalgia washed over them, both bittersweet and comforting. In the backyard, the grass had grown taller, and the old apple trees drooped with age. Yet Lucy's eyes shone as she recognized the orchard. "Look," she said softly, pointing at the largest tree, its branches still bearing a few apples. "Remember how we used to climb that trunk, higher than we should have?" Logan chuckled. "And your mom would yell that we'd break our necks." He stepped closer, running his hand along the rough bark. "Somehow, it's smaller than I remember." Lucy exhaled, closing her eyes briefly. "We were smaller too, but braver in our own way." They wandered to a quieter corner where, decades ago, they'd buried a tin box filled with scribbled notes and drawings. Though unlikely still intact, the memory of that treasure unearthed something in Lucy's heart. "I wonder if it's still down there," she mused, scanning the ground, though no marker remained. "It might be," Logan admitted. "But even if it's gone, we have the memory of planting it." He paused, recalling Lucy's tears when they sealed the box as kids, promising never to forget each other. Back then, they hadn't imagined life pulling them apart. They found a spot under a nearby oak and sat together. Autumn leaves fluttered down, the air carrying a slight chill despite the southern climate. Lucy rested her head against Logan's shoulder for a moment, looking out at the orchard. "It's strange," she said, voice almost a whisper. "This place made me dream about the future, but I never predicted how complicated adulthood would be." He nodded, threading his fingers through hers. "Me neither. If I'm honest, I got lost in ambition, chasing success. I guess part of me forgot this simple magic existed." A light breeze stirred, rustling the leaves and revealing a few slivers of sky through the branches. Lucy took a deep breath, as if inhaling the essence of home. "I feel closer to myself here," she said quietly. "The self I used to be before everything went wrong." Logan turned to face her, his gaze warm with affection. "That self never truly left," he murmured. "She's right here, waiting to be rediscovered." They lingered in the orchard, letting the memories wash over them. It wasn't about mourning what was lost, but honoring the innocence they once shared. In the gentle hush of that childhood sanctuary, Lucy sensed a soft renewal, a reminder that hope and wonder could still find their way into her life, no matter how scarred she felt. When they finally left, they both carried a piece of that orchard in their hearts, ready to nurture it in the present. Back in Chicago, the days started moving faster. Lucy had settled into the routine of her part-time job at the laundry, and the transitional apartment arrangement was going well enough for her to get some quiet nights of sleep, something she hadn't enjoyed in years. Meanwhile, Logan juggled corporate responsibilities with a renewed sense of purpose. The more he listened to Lucy's struggles, the more he realized how many others faced similar challenges unseen by much of society. One evening, Marie Johnson invited them both to a small gathering at New Beginnings. The place buzzed with volunteers and residents sharing a meal in the center's modest hall. String lights dangled overhead, and the smell of homemade chili filled the air. Jack Moore ladled the chili into plastic bowls, greeting people by name. Lucy hung back at first, uncertain, but Jack beckoned her warmly. Logan stayed close by her side, sensing her apprehension in social settings. Gradually, she relaxed, accepting a bowl of chili and joining the circle of chatting voices. Marie clapped a hand on Lucy's shoulder, guiding her toward an empty seat. "We're so happy you're here," she said, genuine warmth in her tone. As they ate, Marie leaned in. "Lucy, how are you feeling about the next steps? I know you mentioned wanting more stability." Lucy glanced at Logan, then back at Marie. "It's scary," she admitted. "But I've been thinking about renting a small place on my own, once I save enough. I don't want to rely on Logan forever." Logan smiled encouragingly. "You're not relying on me," he said softly. "I'm just a safety net if you need it." But he understood her desire for independence, and he respected it. "Actually, there might be an option," Marie said, sliding a flyer across the table. "One of our partner landlords has a unit opening up soon. Reasonable rent, month-to-month lease. The neighborhood is decent, and we can help with a deposit if you don't feel comfortable taking too much assistance from Logan directly." Lucy exhaled, eyes scanning the paper. That could work," she said, excitement and anxiety mingling in her voice. "I'm still getting used to holding down a job. But if things keep going okay at the laundry, maybe I can manage rent." Marie nodded. "You'd have a place to truly call your own." The idea lit a spark in Lucy's eyes. She had come a long way from the days when she huddled in corners, afraid to even step foot in a shelter. Now she was entertaining a future that included her own apartment, a job, and a sense of self-worth. The final step toward real autonomy seemed within reach. Later that night, Lucy and Logan walked home together through the quiet city streets. A soft glow from street lamps guided their path. Lucy clutched the flyer, her teddy bear safely tucked in her backpack. She kept glancing at the paper, as though verifying that it was real. "You know," she began haltingly, "I've spent so long fearing every tomorrow. This is the first time I'm actually planning my future instead of running from the past." Logan's gaze was gentle, pride evident in his smile. "I'm so happy for you," he said, voice low. "And I'm here for whatever help you need. Just remember that." She paused at the corner of her transitional housing building, turning to face him. "There's one more thing," she said softly. "About us. It's confusing. I feel something growing between us. But I'm still fragile. I don't want to mix up my recovery with a romantic attachment and risk losing everything." Logan inhaled, nodding slowly. "I understand. I don't want to rush you or put any pressure on that. Your well-being is top priority. We can let our feelings unfold at their own pace." Relief and appreciation shone in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, stepping closer. For a moment, it seemed she might lean in for a kiss, but she held back, letting the warmth of proximity say enough. "Let's get through this next step. We can figure out the rest after." Logan nodded, touched by her honesty. As she slipped inside the building, he stood under the street lamp for a moment longer, reflecting on how far they'd come. Every obstacle overcome had led to this precious planning of the final step, Lucy's full liberation from the shadows of her past. And if all went well, they'd soon celebrate not just her survival, but the promise of a life she owned entirely. A gentle breeze stirred the crisp afternoon air as Lucy adjusted the key in the lock of a modest apartment on the north side of Chicago. The building was old but well-maintained, the kind of place where neighbors greeted each other with nods in the hallway. Lucy's heart pounded with a mix of excitement and nerves. This was her first home in years that truly belonged to her. "You're sure you're okay?" Logan asked quietly, standing beside her with a small cardboard box of essentials. His voice carried both pride and a tinge of protectiveness. Lucy nodded, turning the key. The door opened to reveal a tiny living room with freshly painted walls and a clean, if worn, carpet. A single window let in a beam of sunlight that fell on the space like an encouraging spotlight. "I'm okay," she murmured. "Just can't believe this is happening." They stepped inside. The apartment was unfurnished except for a mattress lying on the floor, donated by New Beginnings. Marie and Jack had helped coordinate a few other basics: linens, a small table and chair. Lucy set the teddy bear on the windowsill, where it seemed to stand guard over this new beginning. Logan placed the box on the table and took a slow look around. "It's not much now," he acknowledged, "but I see so much potential. You can decorate it any way you want." Lucy gave a soft laugh. "I wouldn't know how to decorate, but at least I can keep it tidy, and it's mine." She wandered from the living room to a tiny kitchenette, running her hand over the empty counters, then into a bedroom just big enough for that mattress and maybe a dresser. Each step whispered a promise of independence. Walter arrived moments later with another box, this one containing a few groceries and some cleaning supplies. He tipped his hat politely. "Congratulations, Miss Lucy," he said, placing the box by the doorway. "Feels good to see you settling in." Lucy blushed, not quite used to such kindness. "Thank you, Walter, for everything." She noticed Logan eyeing her with gentle concern and added, "Both of you have done so much. I want to stand on my own feet now. I hope you understand." Logan smiled, stepping closer. "I do. I'm here if you need me, but I get that you want to build your own life." They set about unpacking, placing cans of soup and boxes of cereal in the cupboards. Lucy found herself smiling at each small task, washing a new dish, folding a borrowed towel. Every act felt like a statement. "I am in control of my life again." At one point, she caught Logan watching her with quiet admiration. She blushed and returned the smile, a warmth rising in her chest. By late afternoon, the place looked a little more like a home, still sparse, but no longer empty. Marie dropped by to see if Lucy needed anything and beamed with pride. "Look at you setting up shop," she teased good-naturedly. "I knew you'd get here." Jack gave Lucy a quick hug. "Don't forget to invite us for a housewarming once you're ready." After they left, Lucy walked to the window where the teddy bear perched, gazing out at the street below. A pang of emotion hit her. Gratitude, disbelief, a touch of nervous excitement. The final step she had planned was now reality. She had a job, a roof overhead, and a sense of security. In the quiet hush of that moment, she knew this was her reward: freedom and dignity. Logan stood beside her, his eyes shining with compassion. Gently, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small plush item, another teddy bear, slightly worn around the edges but clearly cared for. "This is the one I had in my grandparents' house," he explained, voice a little unsteady. "I'd always meant to give it to you. Now, I think the time is right." Lucy took the teddy bear with trembling hands, tears welling up. This simple gesture bridged every gap of time and hardship they had endured. "I can't believe you kept it," she whispered. He brushed a soft tear from her cheek. "Some things are too precious to forget." He paused, then gently placed the bear beside hers on the windowsill. Their two childhood mementos, side by side, looked like old friends reunited at last. Lucy felt a rush of emotion, her chest tight with gratitude and something deeper, affection, maybe even love. In a surge of warmth, she wrapped her arms around Logan. For a heartbeat, they stood there in the quiet apartment, the golden glow of late afternoon sun enveloping them. She didn't know what the future held romantically, but in that embrace, she felt a certainty. They had survived the worst, and together they had reclaimed a precious part of themselves. "I'm free," Lucy murmured against his shoulder, voice thick with tears. "Finally free!" And with that, the first day of her new life began, one defined not by desperation but by hope, self-respect, and the promise that some bonds, once formed, never truly break. Lucy woke to the first rays of sunlight filtering through her small apartment window, where the two teddy bears sat side by side on the sill. Though the space was modest, bare walls and a few thrift store furnishings, it already felt more like home than anywhere she had been in years. She stretched, noticing how her body ached less these days. It was a quiet reminder that stability and proper rest were slowly mending her inside and out. At the kitchen counter, she poured herself a cup of coffee, inhaling the comforting aroma. The hush of the morning felt like a blessing, no alarms, no constant fear that someone would boot her from her spot on a sidewalk. She reached for her phone. An inexpensive model Jack Moore had helped her purchase, scrolling through a few messages. One was from Marie, reminding her of a volunteer orientation tonight at New Beginnings. Another was from Logan, a simple good morning text that brought a soft smile to her lips. After finishing her coffee, Lucy pulled on a light jacket and headed for the bus stop. The route to the laundry service had become familiar. She clutched a small lunch bag she'd packed herself, another small ritual that filled her with pride. Each day, she felt a new ease around her co-workers, especially Clara, who teased her kindly about her first attempts at folding fitted sheets. The clang of washers and dryers had transformed from overwhelming noise to a steady hum that gave Lucy's mind something to anchor to. On the bus, she watched people come and go, office workers in pressed suits, young parents juggling strollers, older women chatting about weekend plans. It struck her that this was a world she once felt cut off from, as though she had been on a separate planet altogether. Now, she blended in well enough that no one cast more than a casual glance her way. The realization felt both freeing and poignant. She had re-entered the ordinary flow of life. Arriving at work, Lucy greeted Clara with a genuine grin. They spent the morning sorting bundles of clothes, processing tickets, and ringing up customers. She noticed that her jitters had lessened, and even when a couple of patrons were hurried or impatient, she handled them without that old surge of panic. It wasn't perfect, she still had moments of self-doubt, but each small success reminded her she was stepping farther from the shadow of her past. During her lunch break, Lucy slipped out to sit on a bench behind the building. A weak autumn sun cast long shadows, and the crisp air hinted at the winter to come. She took a bite of her sandwich, letting her eyes drift to the city skyline. Even that skyline looked different now. She remembered nights spent huddled in doorways, viewing those same buildings as unfeeling towers belonging to a world that didn't want her. But recently, she had discovered pockets of compassion, like the community night clinic, New Beginnings, and Logan himself. She recalled the text from Logan. Over the past weeks, they'd settled into a gentle rhythm, exchanging messages about mundane things, whether he'd found a new coffee spot downtown or how her day at the laundry had gone. He never pushed for more than she could give. Instead, he let her set the pace, which only deepened her appreciation for him. As she thought about it, a warm flush crept up her neck. A few hours later, with work finished and her paycheck in hand, Lucy decided to stop by a nearby store. She picked up a cheap but cheerful curtain panel in a soft green color for her apartment window. She also browsed the aisles for a small lamp, eventually choosing one with a simple beige shade. These might be tiny touches, but to Lucy, they were milestones, signs that she was cultivating a space that reflected her own presence. In the checkout line, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in a security mirror. The woman staring back had less tension around the eyes, a firmer set to her shoulders. Though the old scars and anxieties remained beneath the surface, she saw someone approaching wholeness. A new look at the world, indeed, one where she could choose her own path. As she paid and headed home, a quiet optimism took root in her heart. Maybe she truly belonged in this world after all. A gentle ring of the doorbell echoed through Lucy's small apartment late on a Saturday morning. Setting aside her half-eaten toast, she opened the door to find Logan holding a paper bag that smelled of fresh pastries. His warm smile revealed both anticipation and a hint of lingering concern. "Ready to go?" he asked gently. "Yeah, just let me grab my bag," Lucy replied, feeling that familiar flutter in her stomach whenever they spent time together. She took a quick glance at the pair of teddy bears on the windowsill, her silent companions, then followed Logan into the hallway. This time, their destination wasn't far. They drove out of the city limits to a community farm that hosted seasonal activities, pumpkin patches in autumn, berry picking in summer. Logan parked under a large oak tree where a few families wandered with small wagons, gathering produce or sampling homemade pies. "I thought you'd enjoy this," he said, offering Lucy a pastry from the bag. "It's a bit like stepping back into a simpler world." Lucy's eyes danced with curiosity. "It smells amazing," she murmured, taking a bite of the flaky pastry. The taste of spiced apples melted on her tongue, reminding her of her childhood orchard visits with Logan. She glanced around at the neat rows of vegetables, the cheerful chatter of families, and a quaint barn that sold handmade crafts. An older couple waved at them from behind a stall of fresh honey jars. They wandered the farm paths together, occasionally stopping to admire a cluster of sunflowers or watch toddlers feed goats with squeals of delight. Lucy couldn't help feeling a pang of nostalgia. This open, unhurried environment stirred memories of the orchard they'd visited in Texas. Here, the hustle of Chicago seemed distant, replaced by the crunch of gravel underfoot and the rustling of tall corn stalks in the breeze. After a while, they found a quiet picnic table beneath a willow tree. Lucy rested her elbows on the table's worn surface, observing the swirl of farm life, kids trailing their parents, friends snapping pictures beside hay bales, and vendors tidying up displays of homemade jam. She sensed Logan watching her, and she turned to meet his gaze. "Thank you for bringing me here," she said softly. "It reminds me of better times." Logan reached over, gently covering her hand with his. "I hoped it would," he replied. "You've worked so hard, Lucy. Maybe it's good to find small moments of peace." She nodded, inhaling the earthy scent of hay and freshly turned soil. For so long, her life revolved around survival, rushing from one precarious situation to the next. Now, she was learning to savor quieter experiences, letting them soothe her ragged nerves. She thought back to the orchard in Texas, where they'd buried that little time capsule. Revisiting their roots had helped her heal. But she also recognized that the path to full recovery stretched beyond any single memory. A group of children darted by, giggling and balancing tiny pumpkins. Lucy smiled at them, then turned back to Logan. "I used to think remembering the past would hurt too much," she admitted. "But reconnecting with it like this, it's not the same as living in it. It's more like picking up pieces that help me see how far I've come." Logan squeezed her hand. "That's a beautiful way to put it," he murmured. In his eyes, she saw genuine admiration and something deeper that both of them felt but hadn't fully named. They spent the rest of the afternoon sampling produce, chatting with local farmers, and strolling through a small orchard of apple trees at the farm's edge. Lucy felt no urge to run or hide, only an easy contentment in the moment. Returning to her roots didn't mean being chained to the past. It meant understanding that her story had chapters she could finally revisit without being overwhelmed by shame or fear. When dusk approached, they packed the trunk with a small pumpkin and a jug of fresh cider. As they drove back into the city, Lucy gazed at the fading pink horizon and realized that she now had both the resilience to confront painful memories and the gratitude to cherish sweet ones. The farm's gentle ambiance remained in her mind, a reminder that stepping back to her roots was not a regression, but a reclamation, proving that new growth could emerge from old soil. A week later, Lucy clutched a slip of paper with trembling fingers as she stood backstage at a charity event held in a grand hotel ballroom. Glittering chandeliers and polished marble floors exuded an air of sophistication she still found intimidating. Yet there she was, about to step into the spotlight with Logan. The slip of paper contained a few lines she had written about her journey. She was supposed to share them briefly as part of the evening's theme: overcoming adversity through community support. Logan, standing beside her in a tailored suit, placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're going to do great," he said softly. "Just speak from the heart." He looked undeniably confident, but Lucy knew even he felt a flicker of nerves tonight. This was the first time they'd appear publicly side by side, acknowledging her story to a crowd that included business leaders, philanthropists, and media representatives. The MC introduced Logan, who strode onto the stage to polite applause. Lucy watched from the wing, heart hammering in her chest. He spoke calmly about the company's philanthropic initiatives, emphasizing how listening to real human stories changed his perspective on success. "It's not just about stock prices," Logan explained. "It's about the lives we touch." Then, with a small smile, he invited Lucy to join him. Hands clammy, she stepped forward into the warm glow of spotlights. A hush fell over the audience. She swallowed, trying to steady her voice. I'm Lucy," she began, voice quivering but determined. "For a long time, I was invisible to most of the world, homeless, scared, believing I had no way out." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the sea of attentive faces. In that moment, she sensed a collective empathy in the room, people leaning forward, some with tears already brimming. She glanced at Logan, his supportive nod encouraging her to continue. "Then a friend from my past found me," she said, her tone growing steadier. "He didn't fix everything overnight, but he reminded me that I wasn't worthless. More importantly, he connected me to a community that cares, centers like New Beginnings, volunteers like Marie and Jack, all of them giving me a chance to rebuild." A burst of applause interrupted her, genuine and warm. She caught her breath, blinking back tears of her own. "I have a job now, a small apartment, and for the first time in years, I can imagine a future beyond tomorrow." Her voice cracked slightly, but she pressed on. "I'm not here to ask for pity. I'm here to say thank you to the people who took the time to see me, to help me find my dignity." As she stepped back, the applause rose, echoing off the ballroom's ornate walls. Logan joined her at the microphone, clearing his throat. "Lucy reminds us that no one is truly invisible," he said. "All it takes is for someone to look, to listen, and to act. And that's the kind of world we want to build." More applause thundered, and Lucy felt a rush of emotion unlike anything she'd ever experienced. Pride, humility, and an overwhelming sense of connection to others. After they left the stage, a few reporters came up politely, inquiring about Lucy's experience and Logan's new approach to corporate responsibility. Lucy answered softly, describing how every small kindness played a role in her recovery. Later, they mingled among guests at a simple reception. Marie beamed at Lucy from across the room, giving her a thumbs up, while Jack cheerfully explained volunteer opportunities to a group of curious onlookers. The entire event had transformed into a celebration of second chances. Lucy caught Logan's eye and walked over, her heart still pounding with residual adrenaline. "That was terrifying," she confessed with a breathless laugh. "But it feels good to share what happened. Maybe it'll inspire someone else to help, or someone like me to ask for it." Logan gently took her hand, his eyes reflecting admiration. "You did more than inspire. You showed everyone what hope looks like in human form." Her cheeks flushed with warmth. They stood amidst the crowd, two souls bound by a story of redemption and empathy, a victory they now openly shared. And though Lucy's journey was far from complete, tonight felt like a tangible milestone, proving that resilience could shine brilliantly under any spotlight, so long as there were hearts willing to witness it. A light drizzle fell outside Lucy's apartment, the street lamps casting shimmery halos in the damp night air. She and Logan had just returned from the charity event, still riding the wave of warmth and hope that filled the ballroom. Now, in the quiet privacy of the hallway outside her door, the adrenaline from her public speech began to recede, replaced by a gentle, almost trembling anticipation. Lucy unlocked the door, stepping inside with Logan behind her. The soft glow of a small lamp lit the living room, and the faint hum of the city below provided a steady backdrop. She set her clutch on a side table, feeling her heart flutter as Logan removed his suit jacket. He glanced around, taking in the new green curtains and the second teddy bear perched by the original. A subtle smile curved his lips. "You've made this place feel like home," he said, voice soft. "It's cozy." She nodded, noticing how he lingered near the window, eyes drifting toward the modest view outside. For a moment, neither spoke. Their silence was charged with something they had both sensed building over the past few months, an undercurrent of affection deeper than mere friendship. Lucy swallowed, recalling all the times she told herself she wasn't ready for anything more. But tonight, something in her heart felt undeniably alive. She joined him by the window, leaning slightly against his shoulder as they gazed at the rain-speckled glass. "Thank you," she whispered, voice catching, "for everything. I would never have stood on that stage without you." Logan turned, his dark eyes reflecting sincerity. "You did that on your own strength, Lucy. All I did was stand beside you." He hesitated, as if weighing whether to reveal the emotions shining clearly in his gaze. "I'm so proud of the woman you've become, seeing you reclaim your life. It's one of the most incredible things I've ever witnessed." Her lips parted, and she felt a tear slip down her cheek. This time, it wasn't sadness that caused it, but gratitude and a sense of long-awaited belonging. I don't feel afraid right now, she murmured, placing a hand softly on Logan's arm. Not of you, not of the future. Her voice trembled slightly. And that's new for me. Logan lifted a hand to gently wipe the tear from her cheek. I'd never want you to rush, he said quietly. But I'd be lying if I said I haven't dreamed of something more between us. A charged stillness settled over them, broken only by the gentle patter of rain on the window. Lucy felt her pulse quicken. She thought about the nights she spent scared and alone, clutching that teddy bear as her only comfort, about the day Logan reappeared in her life, offering help without demanding anything in return. Slowly, she let herself accept the truth that had been forming in her heart. She cared for him deeply. Her voice emerged in a bare whisper. Logan, I want that something more, too. And before she could second-guess her courage, she reached up, her fingers lightly brushing the collar of his shirt, drawing him closer. Their lips met in a tentative kiss that held the weight of all the pain, hope, and gentle perseverance they'd shared. Warmth flooded Lucy's chest, her hand trembling slightly as she clung to Logan's shoulder. She felt his arms encircle her, sheltering her, not as a fragile victim, but as an equal who had fought her way back to the light. When they finally pulled apart, the hush between them spoke louder than words. Lucy pressed her forehead to his, breathing in the moment. I'm so grateful, she whispered, laughter mixing with tears. Grateful to be standing here with you, not out on the street, not lost in my past, but right here. Logan's eyes shone with emotion as he brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. It's a new beginning, for both of us. Outside, the drizzle continued to fall, but Lucy no longer felt the chill. She had found warmth in a place she'd never expected, Logan's steadfast presence and her own renewed spirit. The two teddy bears on the windowsill bore silent witness, symbols of a past that had fractured them, yet also served as the bridge reconnecting their hearts. In that tender, rain-kissed moment, Lucy understood that true healing didn't erase the scars, but allowed her to write a new chapter, one guided by love, resilience, and the promise that neither she nor Logan would ever truly walk alone again. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought of the story. See you in the next video.